The Perfect House, starring Felissa Rose, Jonathan Tiersten, and John Philbin. This is sort of like an anthology film. It's released through Wild Eye, releasing with another company here by the name of Instrum International. I believe that's the international releasing. I could be wrong. And then this is the people who probably made it, or the people who probably made it, put it out through Wild Eye. This is my first foray into watching Wild Eye films. I have a couple other collections here from Wild Eye, such as this. It includes a bunch of terrible movies, bunch of low-budget stuff. There's another one called Queen Crab by Wild Eye that I also have somewhere. You'll know by the little logo here. But this was my first foray into Wild Eye films, and I was not disappointed. This was fantastic. You could tell this was shot by a very, very, very modest budget. And when I say modest, I really mean modest. Like, let's take a look at one of the low-budget horror films that I've got up here for comparison. Here we go. I have The Ruins here, released through, DreamWorks Entertainment. Let's say the budget that released this film is less in this, okay? Let's say half that budget, a quarter of that budget. I have no idea the exact number, but it's pretty low. There's only one setting in this entire film, and that is the perfect house. And because they only had one setting in some guy's house, probably one of the guys who worked on this, it's their house. Since the location didn't cost too much to film there, they had a lot extra money to pay for various other forms of special effects. They did the best that they could with, like, nothing. They've got good settings. The basement's got good atmosphere. It's very creepy. The dialogue, the script, it's very creepy, very powerful, and very unnerving, especially in the second segment. This is an anthology film, so to speak. And what do I mean by that? Well, a couple years ago, maybe 20 years ago, somewhere around 2000, early 2000s, turn of the century, they released a film called The Twilight Zone, the movie. And in The Twilight Zone, the movie, there was an anthology film about 1, 2, maybe 3, I think probably even 4 little small stories that feel like episodes in the Twilight Zone series. They're pretty much removed from itself, but unlike The Twilight Zone, in The Perfect House, this anthology of 1, 2, 3 little small horror stories all take place in this house. Let's say that this house is cursed. This house is kind of haunted through a lot of terrible things that happened to the people who lived here. It opens with a realtor showing the house to a couple. A young couple, probably around college age or just out of college age, young 30s or elderly 20s. And they're looking to buy this house, and the realtor is really trying to sell it to them. And as she's selling it to the house, they encounter more and more things that feel wrong. There's a thing that looks like bloodstains on a chair, and we then switch back in time to an indiscriminate amount of time to a different time period to see that there was a family that went into the basement of this house during a hurricane. And this family wasn't exactly peachy clean. We had a father, a mother, and a brother and a sister, and tensions were pretty high. The mother was very drunkish acting. She was very, very foul-mouthed, especially to the son. And then when the blackout happened, we hear a lot of wet sounds and stabby sounds. And when the lights come back on, we only see the brother and the sister alive, and the parents have been killed, presumably by the son. I think the son killed the mother. I think the daughter killed the father. Why do I think this? Because we then have a series of flashbacks where the father is kind of being a little uncomfortable with the daughter. probably bringing up some feelings of resentment and repressed rage that she finally got to act on in this basement during the blackout. Hence his corpse. And the mother has had a history of terrible verbal abuse towards the son, making him feel incredibly inadequate. The father was always spending time with the daughter, and the mother was always putting words into the son's head that the father didn't care about the son, the mother didn't care about the son, the sister didn't really care about the brother, and he was feeling pretty repressed, raged out as well. So when the blackout happened, he took out that rage on the mother. And then the two of them are just sitting there staring at each other, and the sister says, well, what do we do now? And the brother says, well, as I see it, only one of us is allowed to walk out of here because we can't have anybody telling on each other. And so they wrestle, and then the daughter walks out of the house after a blackout. Presumably she took out the brother. And then we have another flashback correcting the son's idea of what the father was doing to the sister. And we learn that the father was just being really kind to the sister, but it still implies that he's probably being too kind to her. So, whatever. The sister walks out of the house alive. She moves out, whatever. And then we switch back to the present day, and the couple have moved on with the realtor to the dining room. And they're talking about another piece of the house. They find some bloodstains on one of the chairs, and then they move down to the basement, and then they're getting really, really uncomfortable vibes in the basement. And then we flash backwards to the second episode here, where there is 2 cages against the wall. One is empty, one is occupied by somebody. And then we hear another dude bringing down a wrapped package that he then lays down, unwraps, and we find that it's the body of a dude. And the man places this body into the empty cage and closes it. The girl rustles, and it's the girl in one cage, in the occupied cage, and the dude in the unoccupied but now occupied cage. And the girl talks to the dude and says, why do you keep me here, blah, 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 blah. And then the kidnapper says, you need to be my audience, whatever, blah, 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 blah. And then he says, make sure you do your part with him when he wakes up. And then he walks out. And then at the night, when the guy comes to in the dark, at the middle of the night, he says, what's going on? Where am I? Help, 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 help. And the girl says, will you shut up? Nobody's going to hear you. Why do you think he would place you in a place where somebody would hear you if you were to scream? That's just stupid. Use your brain. You get the feeling that she's been here a long time. And, so she explains what's going to happen to him. He's going to die on Thursday. It's currently Tuesday. She gets to eat on Wednesdays. And then something uncomfortable happens on Fridays. But she's accepted that. You get the feeling that this has been going on with her for a while. So, we skip ahead to Wednesday. She gets fed, and the dude gets to have some tortures going on. The kidnapper shows the dude a home video of all of his past exploits, and the dude closes his eyes. The kidnapper does not like this and says, if you're going to close your eyes, I'm going to have to remove your eyelids. And so he does so. He removes his eyelids and makes him watch. Now, unable to blink, he watches the kidnapper's film reel. It's very uncomfortable. And the effects, the special effects, it's all makeup. All of this is makeup, and some of it does look CGI. Some of it does look CGI. You could get the feeling that the eyes are CGI, but I still found it to be very interesting looking. I liked it. The makeup, if it's CGI for the eyes, then whatever. But if it's not CGI for the eyes, and that's actually practical effects and makeup around the eyes and all that stuff, then that still looks great. That still looks fantastic. Either way, it's very unnerving to see what happened to this dude. He's unable to blink, and because he has no eyelids. And then the following night happens, the dude falls asleep with his eyes open because he can't close his eyes anymore, because, he has no eyelids. The following day happens, and there's a very lengthy scene where the kidnapper ends his life. And this is horror, okay? This is like one of those grindhouse horror type of films. Very gritty, very gory. So, viewer discretion, listener discretion is absolutely advised here. This is all practical effects and all that stuff and all that stuff. This is all fake. This is all. Just keep that in mind. So you just, but if you feel uncomfortable by what I'm talking about, then you do not want to watch this. You do not. But if you're interested and you like films like these, I highly recommend it. So after the scene where the dude dies, in the middle of the night, the kidnapper leaves the dude's corpse in front of the girl's cage, and she bites off the dead guy's fingers so that she can get at the bones, so that she can gnaw them into sharp points to use them as knives to cut through the cage to escape. The following day, he brings another another unconscious body down into the now vacant cage and goes back upstairs to deal with the knock at the door. The knock at the door is the mother of a missing person. She shows the kidnapper the picture that looks kind of like the girl that's been in the cage this entire time, and she says that she has been missing for 5 years. Let that sink in. She's been here for 5 years. It's no wonder she's half insane. So the girl cuts through the cage to the other side to get to the unconscious girl and says, "You're going to die here, but I don't have to die here." So she strangles her until she stops moving. She undresses her, she puts on her clothes, and she puts her clothes onto the now corpse and switches the bodies around so that the kidnapper doesn't know which person's which. So he opens the cage of the recent one that he thought was the recent girl that he put in there, and then he realizes it's actually the other one, and she stabs him. It's a very satisfying revenge scene, and the kidnapper gets his comeuppance, and she gets to escape. Flash forward back to present day. The realtor is now showing the couple around the basement, and the male of the couple is his hand starting to bleed, his head starting to bleed. There's something happening in this basement. This basement has an aura of evil, of anger in this basement, and they're feeling very, very, very uncomfortable. And then we flash backwards to the last tenants of this house. It's 2 houses and 2 neighbors here. One of them is a dude who lives alone. He's an elderly guy who sounds a lot like Kurt Russell. And, if you've watched Death Proof, Kurt Russell plays a very fantastic villain in that. And that's the type of vibe I get out of this dude. He kidnaps this family after they come over for dinner one night. And he ties them all up. And through a very lengthy segment, one by one, this dude takes them out. They're all gone, and it's pretty bad. I believe that he does not die here. Everybody else does. Everybody's gone, and he just walks away scot-free. And that's it. Who knows where these bodies go? Who knows if, the realtor's actually in on the whole idea of the house, and she's actually hiding the bodies and aiding and abetting the people that do the crap here? Either way, you get the feeling that this house is somehow alive, and all of the people who die here is sort of feeding into the power of this place. And now we swap back to the present day, and the couple realizes that this place is pretty bad, and they decide to get the fuck out. And the realtor goes well, darn. They always don't like the basement. That's usually always the deal breaker, the basement. And she goes well, maybe I should make the basement look a little bit prettier next time. And then the film ends. I loved it. This is the type of low budget that they did everything right. They used a single setting that was very cheap to make film in, probably somebody's on the team's house or whatever, probably one of these guys' houses. They filmed there, primarily there, and they kept the cast small, And they did something very interesting. It was very interesting, and I really enjoyed it. I recommend it if you have the stomach for it. If you do not have the stomach for it, do not watch it. It's just common sense. There is some gore. It's not very, 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 very in-your-face, Evil Dead type of in-your-face type of gore, but it's also not comedic like Evil Dead. It's also not, there's not a lot of revenge fantasy gore, like, say, in the second half of I Spit on Your Grave. No, it's the uncomfortable kind. It's the uncomfortable kind. If you've watched Saw, it's not like that type of gore porn type of thing that's over the top. No, it's not that type of over the topness, but it kind of feels like it in places. There is one scene where somebody uses a weed whacker to, you know, and it's all over the place. You've got to see it. It's just one of those films that you just have to see to understand. This is through Wild Eye Releasing, and Wild Eye tends to put their films on everything. It's most likely on Netflix, it's most likely also on Prime, it's found on hard copy and Walmart bargain bins, it's everywhere. You're not going to have trouble finding Wild Eye Releasing films. If you want to watch it, if what I've been saying for the past 16 minutes interests you even mildly to give this thing a look at, then by all means, take a look and be imaginative.